Well, hey, we are back talking about anger resolution. It's a subject that most people, in my experience, will look for the angry person, the really angry person, compare themselves to that really angry person, and say, I don't have an issue. That's the person with the issue. Everybody suffers dysregulation at times when it comes to anger and how to control yourself and how to have self control or even how to respond. Most people don't have good verbal judo to begin with. I mean, there are people that throw fits over coffee when they order it because there wasn't enough sugar or whatever. It's out of hand and out of control, but we don't usually call that temper. We usually justify, well, I wanted this certain thing and they didn't give it to me. And so we'll have justifications, those things that are supposed to say it's okay if I have these behaviors. Well, these behaviors are that we've been describing are childlike. It makes more sense for a 4 year old or a 3 year old or a 2 year old to throw a fit, to talk smack, to do all that kind of stuff than it does when you're 35. But we've all been role modeled and tempered a certain way. And I think everybody needs to learn how to resolve anger. You may have self-control when it comes to certain things regarding yourself, but then when you're put in a situation where it's somebody who doesn't have self-control, it'd be best that you understand anger and how it works so that you can help disarm that situation too. Now, you can't control where their emotional state, but and you're not responsible to control their emotional state, but just looking at it that way where it's like um, we come together, we are in the same room. If I have skills, then I'll understand if you don't, and I'll understand if you do, and we can work with it from there. So everybody should be gaining skills when it comes to communication. Good verbal judo, as we call it, is the best thing. So I have actually a few more dirty fighting techniques. We've been going over dirty fighting, disarming dirty fighting techniques. Well, we don't know they need to be disarmed if we don't know what they are. And like I said, this is not an exhausted list. We could go on and on when it comes to dirty fighting. And some of them that we've named as being the archaeologists and digging up things that, really just need to be left in the past, or trying to get at that other person by controlling them through their past. Um, the palm reader where you're predicting future things, and it's just dirty fighting to speak over somebody, to prophesy over somebody. Here's how it's going to go for you because you are like this and this is never going to work. No, stop doing that. You're not their prophet. You're just angry, and anger is the secondary emotion, remember? So in that secondary emotion, we might be feeling lost or abandoned or hurt or shamed or some kind of emotions that go around that, and then that ticks us off, right? First, most people get annoyed right out of the gates, and then that's your opportunity. Like, I'm starting to feel annoyed. I should gather my wits. I should think this through. I should slow things down so I don't jump into something, do something, say something that I shouldn't be saying. And if you go from 1 to 10, we've talked about that. With skipping all the steps in between, you're out of control. If you pass 10 when it goes to anger, you're in rage. And anger says, I want something to stop. Rage says, I want something to stop, but I don't believe it ever will. I don't care what happens to you because I believe you don't care what happens to me. So as we see this, we're going to go into talking about a few more characteristics of dirty fighting. And man, there's some things I don't want to be proud of. I'm not proud of any. And looking at this and measuring my own life and thinking, oh my goodness, I was an archaeologist. I was all these different things on the list. And then when you combine them together, that's a dirty fight. That's not what we're trying to resolve. We want each other to win-win. I'm going to win. Watch me do it. And it just gets dirtier as you go along. So number 16, we're going to right now, Proverbs 20:19 is a reference you can look up. It's the talebearer. It's a person who part of dirty fighting is you're getting that message out to other people. You're letting other people know how horrible this person is and how wrong they are, and we're going to create a story so that when we go to deal with it, it's he said and she said and I never said starts coming up, and you actually end up arguing about those things because somebody's been gossiping, somebody has been lying, someone has created something. And many times, once again, part of dirty fighting is that we don't deal with the real issue. The real issue could just be like, you're making me feel like you're abandoning me. I and it's scaring me. See, those are my first emotions. That's the real issue. Can we talk about that? Well, what happens is dirty fighting goes, no, I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about how you make me feel now. I want to talk about how so and so said to me that you said, and it starts going, and then we argue about whether those things have been said. It goes down to just really prophesying over each other, some really nasty stuff. And tailbearing is not good and it's not healthy. You don't need other people. You don't need to create an army to settle something when somebody actually shares their real feelings. You may not feel like they have a reason to feel that way, but you know what? It's too late. They already feel that way. So you have to look at it like that. It's called emotional rape when you tell somebody, well, you shouldn't feel that way. And that's supposed to like cure it. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to feel that way. I guess I take back all my feelings. No, it's too late. They already felt what they felt. And their feelings are valid to them, right? Whether you think there's a reason for them to feel that way or not, they feel what they feel and their feelings are real. And so really each one of these fighting techniques that are just built into us, we've seen them role modeled, we've watched them work on grade school, and we brought them into um, to our adult life. And really, those things are all about let's get off the subject. Let's talk about something different because, where there's strife, there dwelleth every evil and wicked thing. So you can bet the way that the demonic realm, the way that the devil, the way that evil itself sets itself up is always moving pieces around so that we don't have to face things, so that we don't have to bring up things. That makes sense. Uh, we were just going to jump around here now and hurt each other, but not deal with the real issue. Because the real issue, I might have to own something. The real issue, I might have to confess something. I might have to regulate myself differently. That's going to mean change. I don't like change. You change. I don't have to change. Well, there's the problem. Humble ourselves before the Lord, and He'll take care of the rest. We need to humble ourselves, though, and ask God how He would do these things. All right. Number 17 is the fisherman. Ooh, so many people do this. I think I've done this in the past. I really try hard not to do it now that I see it. The fisherman baiting you for a fight. So that's where you throw out something, you decide really within megaseconds. You're like, what am I going to put on this hook? This person is starting to make me feel uncomfortable and I don't want to have to own anything or whatever. So I'm going to bait them out for a fight. I'm going to say stuff that's going to light them up so that they can bite into it. And then I can turn and say, see, you're the one with the poor behavior. Look at you. Look at how mad you're getting. What is your problem? And it's a way of baiting for a person for a fight. So when I'm helping people who are dealing with somebody who really has this habit, the habit they have is biting the hook. And so I have to tell them, stop doing that. Don't allow yourself to be so hungry to win or hungry to be heard that you bite into whatever they're throwing out. You don't give them that. And so they can fish all day if they want to. Doesn't mean you're going to bite. And if they start to see that you're a person that's not going to be baited out, you're not that person. Because when you fish, you throw it out there. You got the right lure, you got the right thing, right? And even the word lure is like, let me lure you into this, and then you bite on it like you're hungry to prove yourself. You're hungry to win. You're hungry for something rather than just see it at face value and be like, even if the other person's dysfunctional, it's like, wow, they got a problem, but I'm not biting that. I'm not feeding in and equalizing myself with that poor behavior. But if you bite in, what is that next thing, right? The fisherman sets the hook. You pull back. I can feel him tugging at the food. I can feel him. So you set the hook, and now the hook is in there, right? And I find it interesting that this illustration is about your mouth because that is the part that we're fighting with, and it's painful what's coming out our mouth, and it's painful what's coming out their mouth, and yet they're reeling you in, one comment after the next, and you're fighting it. You're fighting it. You're fighting it. And then all of a sudden, they say some final things and pull you out of the water, and you're out of breath, and you're done. That's the feeling. You're like, we'll do whatever you want to do. Then we'll, instead of fighting against it, then we'll say things like, fine, whatever you want to do. I don't care anymore. When really we do care. It's just we're exhausted from the fight that we were being reeled in on. And so you can't allow the bait to lure you. You can't allow that to suck you in. So it's going to take some discernment to figure out, is this person really having a conversation with me, or are they trying to set a hook? Are they trying to get me into a full-blown fight for my life and for the integrity of who I am? Um, and then as you see that, it takes everything inside of you to be like, I'm not biting that. I just want to, but no, you can't give them that. It's a skill. So, we've said over and over at core programs, if you've posture yourself as a victim, that makes everything else a bully. Everyone else, whether they're trying to bully you or not, is going to make everything else seem like a bully. But when you take charge and are empowered in yourself to be able to say, no, I see that as evil. I see that as immature talk. I see that I'm not biting into it. I'm not doing this fight. Sorry. And that person begins to, you're announcing like, I'm sorry you feel that way. But I don't see us coming to any resolve with it being talked about like this. So I'm out. I think you need to calm down. I think you need to, if we need to get counseling, we can. I'm open to that. I mean, there's some things where you're not sidestepping it. You were just giving different options. And they're believing that, no, I'm supposed to bait you. You're supposed to bite. And then I fight with you, but I'm the one with the rod. So I'm going to pull you in and eventually I will win. You may put up a good fight. And some people, their dysfunction is just like when you go fishing, there's a high you get off of, like this is a big fish. Oh, this is going to be a great catch. And I put the right lure and I did everything. You start to feel that dopamine rush of like, I'm going to win this thing. We just got to get him in. We got to get the net around him. We got to get him in the boat. And then they're mine. Right. And so if you were raised seeing that kind of victory, it's dysfunctional victory. But if you were raised seeing that right away, you're going to be trained to like, no, I want to fight this out. I want to catch you. I want to say something that will bait you and watch you be lured in. And then, oh my goodness, I got you. I'll just set the hook. And people get a rush off of that. They don't even know they're getting a rush off of it a lot of times. They're just cantankerous in that way and want to start a fight. And if that shoe fits for yourself, you just put that baby on because we have to face ourselves in order to correct these dysfunctional ways of communication. So, number 18 is the boxer. The boxer is waiting. Now, I grew up with boxing, so you've got to position yourself where you have one hand that's kind of protecting you and the other one's going out or up or around or whatever it is that your training is. But the knockout artist is the boxer. That's the person who's just waiting and waiting. And then when they hit, they're going to hit really hard. They're going to uppercut you. They're going to, boof right in the face or whatever. That's how it would be in the physical. They're not looking for a big fight. They're just going to say something that will cut so hard that it knocks you out. They're experts at just like, let me cut you to the quick. And usually it takes a person who's very close to you to do that. because they're the ones that know your deepest secrets. They're the ones who know your areas of pain. A stranger, you know, can talk smack and you're like, whatever, you don't even know me. But when somebody really close, your father, your mother, a brother, your spouse especially, they just say something and you're trying to resolve something over here, but they come over here and just pop you one with a comment and you're laid out. You're like laying there on the floor. That's because that boxer technique is like, I ain't continuing to talk about this. I'm going to hurt you so bad the first time. You're going to come up feeling like you had a concussion and you're not going to want to have this conversation ever again. That's dysfunctional. Dysfunctional. And some people will take it from using their mouth as a boxer to, I will hurt you physically. And that's way in the rage area. So, another dysfunction. I'm hoping that we're identifying ourselves as we're going through this. Your brain's going to go to somebody you experienced, but always bring it back to yourself. Like, oh, I remember that teacher. Oh, I remember that kid at school. I remember whatever it was. Okay, that's cool. You're identifying it. But now bring it back into right here. Right here. I need to be heard right here. I need to regulate right here. And in that, then we'll see if we have boxer techniques because they're dysfunctional and they're very hurtful. So let's go on to one more. This one is very passive aggressive, and it's Proverbs 24:12. You can look that up. Claiming innocence on any topic. I wasn't there. I didn't know. I didn't remember. I How am I supposed to know? There's sometimes that's valid. Uh, but usually when it's valid, you come across a little bit different. Like, let me give you an example. If my husband said, well, you did hurt me during that time because remember, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to remember it and I don't remember it. I don't go, well, I never did that. It's more like, whoa, if I actually did that, that was pretty dysfunctional. Or if you remember me doing that and I don't remember it, I am so sorry. I don't remember doing that in a way where I was trying to take control or whatever. I don't want to hurt you. And then you value the person in a real way, not in a suck up way, right? Because that's a whole nother dirty fighting technique. But claiming innocence on everything is very passive aggressive. It makes the people around you feel crazy because you're like, I saw you do it. You just said that. A big one can be valid in this way. It's like you were just yelling at me. And the person's like, I never yelled at you. But anyone around, if you'd have recorded it, it's outright yelling. But in themselves, many times the person can't tell that they're at a level that's way beyond where they should be in their speech or their volume or their looks on their face or anything like that. They're like, I never threatened you yet, but they're like this the whole time when they're talking to you. Well, sure, you never said I'm going to hurt you, but everything looked very threatening. But if they can't see themselves, that's a whole nother issue that they're going to have to work on. But what you saw was there, then it's dysfunctional. It's one of those things you can't claim it didn't happen. But the speech of the person who wants to come around and make change will not suck up to you, but be like, "Why? I actually don't remember it like that. If I did that, I am so sorry." And they will find a way to help heal the situation and move on. And it won't be sorry, you know. It's an actual sorry. It's an actual like even if you took it that way and they weren't that way, that it's interesting. I've actually been in a service where um somebody said something out loud when I was preaching and I addressed them. And then what they spread into the community was that I was yelling up that, and this is how they said it. They were all up in my grill and she was just like all over me and I couldn't get a word in edgewise. The problem with that is it was on film. And so we could go back and watch it. My voice was not raised. I was talking just like I am now, giving an answer to whatever it was that they brought up. But sometimes we do translate through our own pain. that a person's yelling at us when really they're not. Or they're just, going to this rage level when really they're at a 1 to 3. And you just know that they want something to stop and it feels that invasive to you. So this is a big one, that self-evaluation. You have to keep looking. Is that just something that I saw? Is that really real? Getting reality checks from other people. If you have that proof like I had, it's like it's right there. Now, I'll own it. If it looked like I was up in your grill or whatever, I'll own it. But anyone watching it is saying, no. In fact, I would have said something more intense, one person said to me. It's like, there you go, right? Um, so we have to look at it from both sides. A person may see something and claim you did something, and that's going through their filter. Another person claiming innocence on topics, that's where you're like, let's avoid the real subject again. Every one of these is like, don't want to talk about the real subject, don't want to explore the real subject, don't want to own any behaviors I had in the real subject. I don't want to say that I'm hurting about the real subject. I don't want to face myself. I don't want to face my emotions. It's all about the underlying thing. That's why we call this anger resolution, because anger management is like, I feel it. I got to wait, not go my way and manage not punching you in the face right now, right? But this is more like, I got to feel it and I got to reveal it and I got to deal with it so I can heal it. And when that happens, that means we're owning stuff. That means we're changing our language to, she said that to me and I thought I was going to die, or extremes like that. We change our language to like, yeah, I was hurting. And I don't know if I heard it wrong or not, but it sounded like you were yelling at me. And I was scared. See, I'm talking about me. I'm not like, you were the one who made me scared and you have these poor behaviors or whatever. I'm talking about me because I'm trying to learn how to self regulate me. I'm not after regulating that other person. I'm after regulating me. Because even if you had to regulate another person, let's say you're a police officer or a school teacher or something, and you have to get this where they can be regulated. If you're not self regulated, you have nothing to offer them. You really don't. If you can't regulate yourself, you can't take them where you haven't gone. So it's really important that we own behaviors and don't own something that doesn't belong to you. That's another one that Christians will do. Kind of aggravates me. So I'm just being honest about it. It's one of these things where, all right, I'll just own everything. I'll say sorry for everything. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry that. You don't have to sorrow unless repentance is really needed. The sorrow that the Bible talks about, we shouldn't sorrow, except for one area, unto repentance. That means I'm really going to own a behavior that actually belongs to me. I'm not owning behaviors for you. I'm not saying I'm sorry so that I can help you emotionally. I'm going to own a behavior if it belongs to me. It's dysfunctional to, like, well, I'm sorry, and the person's yelling at you and everything. I'm sorry. No, actually, I'm speaking up and I'm not sorry about it. And if it makes you mad, that's on you. If you have a poor behavior, you go out and get drunk. If you drive your car 100 miles down the road, if I'm saying something to you in love that we need to face and I'm willing to talk about it and I'm doing it in a functional way and you flip out, that's 100% on you. We are 100% responsible for our own behaviors. Even when somebody's wronged me, two wrongs don't make a right. It doesn't give us the right to wrong a wrong. We're supposed to bring something righteous to where the wrong is. And wrong don't like righteous. Darkness does not like light. So claiming innocence on topics is very witchcrafty. It's very much, let's change the subject. I never did. I never was. And there's usually what's really interesting when a person's lying about something, there is a tone. Some people can look you right in the eye. They're that good at lying, and they'll look you in the eye and they have no different tones or whatever. But the average person, when they lie, they'll look down and to the left. Well, I wasn't even there. Mom, I tried calling you. They'll look down and to the left, and then their voice tone will change of like, I never did. I wasn't there. Uh, you know, um, and then as people get older, many times they don't have a voice tone at all. They'll just passive aggressive, just kind of, I ain't giving you that. And they sit there almost with a smirk. And these are ungodly behaviors. They're ungodly behaviors. I can't stop you from doing them, but I sure can regulate myself with Jesus. I sure can get with him and make sure that that is changing. Here's another one, the cusser, Ephesians 5:4. You can look up. But the cusser, you know, cursing can be proclaiming things over a person like, you'll never amount to anything. That's like a curse because curse says, I'm going to subtract from you. Now, you can use cuss words to cause a subtraction, like a curse over somebody, you know. But many times the cusser is the person that's the indicator. Like they've been talking pretty normal and now they start adding the small little cuss words, you know, and then all of a sudden it'll gravitate to her, boom, I'm going to grab some bigger ones, you know, and I'm going to say some things and I'll say them louder and I'll say them with this cussing tone of disgust. And that's supposed to scare the person they're cussing around. I know because people do it in my office a lot. And then they'll apologize to me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I cussed Pastor Mary. Well, I'm not your savior. I'm not God. If you're going to be sorry, say it to him, right? Say it to him. I'm not controlling your speech or any of those types of things. I'm not your Holy Spirit. But out of respect to my God, I may ask you to stop out of that. But the other part is if I'm dealing with somebody and they have to go to the level of cussing or cursing someone, then they're jumping those steps and heading toward rage. Nobody sits calmly and just throws the F bomb down just because they are talking calmly about flowers. I mean, there are some people who cuss that much. But usually when you're trying to resolve something and it ends up being, I'm going to say this, and you say these things in between like that, that's you making points because you're climbing the ladder of anger instead of resolving the anger. We're trying to get descriptive in a really weird way. Um, and what's interesting is a person who can cuss, like they usually have that saying, cuss like a sailor, cuss like anybody, really. If you can cuss like that and then, feel like you made a point, you really didn't describe where your emotions were at. You just look ticked off. You're just bigger than life. That's peacocking once again. It's like, ooh, I'm using a cuss word, ooh, making a lot of noise, and the peacock, the tail is spread, and you're like, look at me, I'm the most amazing person in the room now because I swore. You don't need to do that. Conversation is powerful when you share real feelings. That really upset me. Now here's where you go to the doctor and they have those little. They never used to have this when I was a kid. Of course, that was a long time ago. But they have those feeling charts. Whether it goes for pain or emotional feelings. And I was raised with a lot of cussing, so I didn't have the way of like saying, like I really feel hurt, and that made me feel ashamed. It would just be like blah blah blah, and I just cuss stuff, and then you're supposed to translate. Everyone's supposed to be a translator of the cussers. We're supposed to. Oh, so they were feeling ashamed. That's why they used the F bomb 4 times instead of once. Like there is no interpretation of that, but the feeling coming out of us of the disgust of the level of I'm just going to put a label on this thing. I don't know how to describe it. Is really hot. So we think that other person should describe that. But you take that same person many times who's just fluent in cussing. they're extra good at their language, right? And then you put one of those charts in front of them that has all the circles and describes emotions. they cannot identify their own emotions, right? To label something as hurtful or shame or I felt really alone or I felt run over. I mean, any of the things that describe here's what's happening in the inside of me, they usually aren't good at that language. And they think those charts are stupid. But the charts are there for people who been through enough pain in their life that they've learned that cussing is the way of communication that you somehow will translate what they mean and see their degree of anger, and then you'll know what to do. You'll know how to cower to them. You'll know how to back off of them. All of those types of things. And then in the end, they will never have to deal with the real subject. Once again, we're off the real subject. But if you can't identify your feelings, you're not going to be able to identify the real subject. Make sense? All right. Here's the last one we're going to do, and that's number 21. And I have next to it Proverbs 18:13. And you can look that up. It's the know it all. They know, they've studied it, they were there first, their friends said, and they graduated, whatever. And it's just they're always trumping you with knowledge rather than dealing with the emotional things that say, it doesn't matter what you know, but I'm hurting and I'm trying to talk about it. Well, that comes from this and that comes from the other thing. And there's always an answer that's just all knowledgeable. And there's no way you can solve with that. And by the time they're done talking to you, you feel so stupid because they know all this stuff. And whether they know it or not, I have dealt with a lot of people that just make stuff up as they go. And they're just really good at sounding like they know all kinds of stuff, but they're schmoozing. Their schmoozy talk is stupid talk, but they're making themselves sound really smart. It's kind of like when somebody says a phrase like, by virtue of its pyrrhicism, it diverses metaphysics. That makes me sound really smart, but I can't tie my own shoes when it comes to dealing with shame or some of those things. I can't use knowledge as a way of getting out of dealing with the real issue. Very logical people want to know it all and want to trump all of those things so they don't have to deal with it. If they're extremely logical, it's just like there's got to be a logical reason for this, and sometimes there's not. And sometimes we just have emotions that we have to identify and process and unpack and put away. It's not always logic, right? I get it when people are far too emotional and they have no logic at all. Well, that's a whole nother thing. But this is the person, the know-it-all, just knows it. And you shouldn't feel the way you feel. You should build a bridge and get over it. And they always have a logical answer. That's dirty fighting. So I hoped by sharing some of these, you saw yourself. But usually we'll see somebody else first. Oh, that's just what my dad used to do, or that's what so-and-so used to do. Cool. But in the end, we turn the whole mirror right here and we look at ourselves and go, do I do this? What needs to be changed? God help us. He has brought change. He is the resurrection and the life, and he wants that ability for change to come. And it comes through knowledge, it comes through understanding, it comes through becoming a disciple, a disciplined one to his truths. And it takes a work. He'll help you. He'll give you the strength, but there is no answer to this that doesn't involve work. It's going to take us working to learn, working to see ourselves, working to understand, and then asking for his super on our natural.